Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Financially Forever After, a love and money podcast. We are your hosts, Lindsey and
Brett the Moneymaker, Shunkweiler.
here to give you some love, sage advice.
Sage.
Remember we talked about this before. Sage is wisdom.
Oh, I think the spice every single time.
Yeah. What was the other word for sage we used?
And financial tips.
Well, yes, and financial tips.
I mean, you're talking about sage.
You're the sage of finance. The
wisdom.
wisdom of finance.
Why do you use these weird
I like
words
that
like-
word, sage. It just sounds so wise, like the wise owl. And now that we're in our midlife, I feel like we do have some knowledge and wisdom to offer those that are younger. But we're always learning as well. So now that I got on my sage, little side note there, what do you got for me? What's going on in the world?
I just wanted you to know that if I had a garden, I'd put my tulips and your tulips together.
Where do you find this stuff? Is that a dad joke?
No, it's a Riz line.
That's a Riz line?
Yeah, so
What's Riz for those people that don't know
that's
what
like
that means?
a pickup line or something funny to say to
Like Riz is like having swagger.
Swag, yeah. So, my middle child, anytime I pick her up, we, on the way home, we like to do riddles, or we like to let's do some Riz lines. And I'll go home and I'll use a couple Riz lines on you sometimes.
You did one the other day and it was like, what? That is so bad. Or you'll yell them at the window and I'm like walking and you're driving by, you'll yell them at me as you're
All I know is you remind me of a parking ticket. You got fine written all over you.
My gosh. For as cheesy as they are, they do make me laugh a little bit. But that brings up a good point. So obviously I do the relationship side of the podcast. So I'm always Googling topics. I'm looking at Instagram and TikTok for all these cutesy things. Well, there's these wives, I think it's just a trend or whatever, but they're constantly, they are constantly playing tricks on their husbands or scaring them. And there was this wife, she literally has she must be a makeup artist or but she's constantly doing makeup and doing characters from movies, but it's not cute characters. It's like Gollum from Lord of the Rings or really scary. So her boyfriend's sleeping and he wakes up and she's right there in his face, and she'll be in character. It just makes me laugh. Well, this wasn't this girl, but one girl had painted her whole body to match the ceiling color in their bathroom. And she somehow was on top of the bathroom door, pressed up against the ceiling. So her husband had come in to use the restroom and she just jumps out of the ceiling. Hilarious.
What?
Scared him to death.
Little spider monkey.
Yeah, it was really funny. Or I've seen people hang their on a coat hook on the back of a door and just hang there. I was like, these people got a lot of.
That's got to be one strong coat.
Yeah. They must have a lot of time on their hands too. And how can you even get up there,
what am I going to do? I'm going to hang myself on a coat.
But I do enjoy a good scare. When I am able to scare you, because you usually get me.
Oh, I love scaring you. It's so much fun.
And I feel like anytime I get a chance to
it's so
return the favor, it's always a good time.
good. And my staff one time. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Remember our son's dinosaur blow up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them had that, and hey Brett, there's something wrong with the ceiling tile. We need you to come look at it. I'm like, can I just come in a couple? No. We need you to look now. So I go in there.
Yeah.
And they're dressed up in this dinosaur outfit.
Oh my gosh.
Scare the crap
Did you
out.
scream?
I was just looking down what's happening? Right
And then another one of our staff has a tarantula at home, which I am terrified of spiders. So if she would have done this to me, I would not have been happy. But I didn't know they shed their skin like a snake. So it actually looks almost like a spider itself. And you were at your computer working.
Yeah, they put it on my keyboard.
Yeah.
And everybody was listening intently, waiting for me to scream
Did you scream?
I just walked in, I'm like, what a pain in my arse. Look at them, putting that there.
Did you know it wasn't a spider?
I just grabbed a napkin and I'm like, I ain't touching this weird.
Did you think it was a spider?
No.
You just saw that?
Clearly skeleton.
Oh, I don't care.
I picked it up, I threw it in the trash, and she wanted it back. She's like, why would you throw it away? Why would you put a skeleton?
What does she do? Yeah, what does she do with
spider there? I don't know.
Oh, no. I don't do spiders.
No.
I don't do snakes really at
I
all.
like snakes.
But yeah, so don't scare me with like those kind of things. But I do love a good prank. April Fool's just came and I love pranking our children. It is so much
You said the
fun.
snake of the we've seen where people like golfing and then like they have that
yeah,
like
they
snake,
tie it to
they
the
get it to
back
like the
of
back of
them.
their pants and they keep
Yeah.
running and they constantly chase
There's
it
some, they're
'cause it's tied on
older.
a string.
There's some older guys and it's like, oh, he's going to break a hip. Like, that's dangerous.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious to watch.
You
But
can
yeah,
go to YouTube like snake
Yeah,
like, on golf
those
course
are always-
videos.
those
Oh.
are some good ones. So yeah, keeping humor in your relationship is always a good positive thing.
Mhm.
So let's get into our topic today for the relationship. So this is actually coming from a pastor, and we don't really cover too much into religion on the podcast, but Brett and I are both Christian. That's part of our marriage is keeping our Christianity and God the center of it. And we're not pushing our agenda by any means, but I just thought some of the stuff he had written was very, very, it applies to a lot of people. So him and his wife have been married 25 years. So he had 25 tips, and this is coming from his community church. It's Real Life Community Church, written by Chris May, which is the pastor of their church. But he brought up some really good points about longevity in a relationship and keeping marriage as a covenant. So he had mentioned Hollywood likes to promote love as being a feeling, like keeping that feeling of love. And he said the problem with that perspective is that feelings come and go. So I just think of our own relationship. There's days where you don't like me very much. I don't like you very much. And if we were to just base it on our feelings alone, our marriage would have ended a long time ago, because feelings, if you just have that, well, I just am so in love. I feel so in love with this person. It's more than that. Marriage is way more than that. So he brought up a good point that if a marriage is based on just feelings alone, it's destined to fail. And he said the biblical view is that the covenant upholds the love, not the love that upholds the covenant, which is a good point. He also had mentioned that C.S. Lewis, which amazing author, we just watched those movies with the kids, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and what's the other one Narnia. So yeah, author, Christian author, but also he had mentioned that he said that feelings of love would follow acts of love. So that's actually, again, those feelings can kind of come and go throughout a marriage, especially a long-term marriage. So making the covenant of marriage important and priority is where you should be coming for if you're looking to last. So we're going to do this in a two-part today because there is 25 tips since it was 25 years of marriage. So we're going to uncover a couple of tips today, and we'll get the next few for next week's episode.
Sure.
So yeah, his first tip is to take the word divorce out of your vocabulary. What do you think about that?
I think that's if you're going to get married and you are married, I think that's a great way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, there can be a couple reasons that, that could make logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, if it's just like an argument or, something that's not one of those, extenuating circumstances, that, yeah, fight through it. I mean, you and I have had some battles before, not like physical battles by any means, but, we've had fights before that, didn't go well. Like, they didn't go well. I wasn't on the same page as you. You weren't on the same page as me. We didn't want to see each other. We want to be by each other, like sometimes for days.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would take us, 4 or 5 days before we even talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of it, I think we both realize that we're better together than what we are apart. I do love this other person. I don't see their perspective right now, but maybe if we had more conversations that I could maybe gradually see their point of view or their perspective, because I try to look sometimes like, all right, if I'm you, like, what are you thinking?
See, and that
But I don't know if you
work
do
well
that.
for you because that book, Men Are for Mars, Women Are for Venus. I just feel like men think, and maybe not just all men, but you specifically are more logical thinking, where I am more emotional. I definitely think emotionally, and I'm quick to blow up rather than processing. So you're definitely better at like processing, sitting in it and thinking logically. So I think I appreciate that you try to understand where I'm coming from, but I don't think we can never get into each other's brains. But yeah, so that's a very good point of, obviously situations happen. I don't think divorce should be for most people, obviously, if you're just using that as a crutch. But there are circumstances where maybe there's abuse, maybe there's cheating. There's definitely circumstances that arise where you obviously should dissolve the marriage. But he had mentioned that divorce has tragically become trivial in our culture. Many go into the marriage covenant with the attitude of, if it doesn't work, we'll just part ways, which I actually agree with. With the statistics being as high as they are and the divorce rate being as high as it is, I feel like a lot of times people take the easy way out rather than, because marriage is hard. I mean, we've had some really low lows and really hard times, and it's been a struggle at times. But if we had, and I think both of us are on the same page, divorce isn't really an option for either one of us. We went into our marriage on the Christian the ideology of God created man and woman to be married. We are going to stick it out. We chose to get married. This is us. So I think taking that divorce out of the equation, it really gives you a sense of security to say, not that I can say anything I want to you, but in a way I can be honest with you, knowing that if I were to say this, oh, how's he going to take it? Is he going to threaten divorce? Because that could happen. If you're in a marriage where it's kind of shaky and it's like, well, we could get divorced, it could happen.
I've even had clients before, like they would talk in a meeting, like, oh, well, for my next wife, or for like, and the current wife is there.
But saying in a way where she passes, or like,
no,
oh, we're going to get divorced.
Yeah, I'm like, what type of healthy relationship is this? Or I've seen before where like one spouse doesn't let the other one talk, or like they control everything. Yeah. And the other one just like, does whatever they say.
For finances.
Yeah, for finances. Maybe not even for finances, just like in general. Like, hey, one overrides everything that the other one does, and the other one doesn't get a say in anything. Sure. It's like, that ain't healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'll be 100% transparent as well. I've thrown around the divorce stuff in a heated argument. I don't ever actually mean it, but that's not something you should probably do. That's not healthy. No. Yeah, that's not healthy so I'm learning as I grow as well to be more mature and not even threaten that, because it's not something we even would ever entertain is doing getting a divorce. So that was just really eye-opening to kind of hear him say it that way. Taking it out of the equation really makes you think, yep, we got to put in the work. The second one is never let your children come between you and your spouse. What are your thoughts on
that? That is, I believe, a very tough statement or question. I mean, here's what I mean by that is there's sometimes that, and you might say the same thing, is like there's sometimes things that you do or say to them that I don't agree with, but I will bring that up to you and I will say that. Doesn't mean that we won't both try to parent in the same way, but there's some things I'm like, yeah, no, you shouldn't say that. Like, you can think it, you can tell it to me, but you don't say it in front of them. But in regards to both of us agreeing to parent and say, hey, be on the same page and like, hey, we're going to agree to have this happen. I mean, there's times that, you're pissed at me, I'm pissed at you. Like, there's some things that you'll just do and you're like, all right, well, I already told me you could do this. I'm like, okay, well, that might be something that we talk about next time. Like, how about we talk about that before we make that decision? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there's your time telling you. Time out.
Take a time out.
Yeah, you're 100% right. But so he's more or less saying your allegiance is first and foremost to your spouse. So not using your kids as a manipulation tactic, not using a one-up on your spouse and saying, well, your dad did this or your mom did this, where it's the kids are constantly in the middle. And then you also brought up a good point of if one parent says something, the other one really needs to one, communicate so they're on the same page, but also to stand by the other parent so that they're on a united front as far as the kids go. But also I feel like he's also saying it in a way where don't let your kids' activities get in the way of your one-on-one time. Don't let your kids' everything that's going on in your kids' life take away from you and your spouse, because ultimately your kids are going to graduate, your kids are going to move away, and it's just going to be you and your spouse. So if your whole lives revolve around your children and what's going on in their lives, you lose that connection with your spouse. So making sure that you set time aside to say, nope, your dad and I are going on a date, you're not coming, you're staying at home with your grandparents, or if you're old enough to watch yourselves, that's fine. But we need to keep our marriage alive, and our marriage is important. And then them seeing that, we're keeping our marriage covenant and we're keeping our relationship strong, that's good for your children to see as well.
Yeah.
So
what happens if you're later on in life? What happens if your kids are up and grown? Anything different on that?
If they're out of the house, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Say, hey, we are. They've been out of the house for 20 years. Anything different, or all the same stuff?
It just depends. If there's an issue with your kids and let's say they're out of the house, again, you as a married couple should have like a united front. Let's say one of our daughters is having marital issues with her spouse or whatever. You and I should come at it as a place of like partners rather than I'm telling her one thing, you're telling her, what I mean? So you should try to keep it as united as possible.
Yeah, I know. A lot of times kids will ask me something. I'm like, what did your mom say? Well, what did your mom say?
Thing. Or I'm like, ask your dad. And they're like, well, he said to ask you. We're going to go back and forth until you forget.
Well, I'm going to make a decision. One of the 4 I'm allowed to make today.
Yeah, please. Because it's funny, because even our kids will ultimately, mom's the one that's home most of the time. She's the boss when it comes to the family stuff. So,
yeah.
Because you're not always home to know.
I said to our middle the other day, I'm like, well, everyone knows I'm the boss. She's like,
yeah.
Okay, Dad.
It's just like, okay, we need to appease you. But yeah, exactly. So number 3, don't argue to win battles, argue to solve problems.
Ooh.
What do you think about that one? I thought that was really interesting.
I like that. There was something said the other day that my brother actually, he heard 2 people arguing, and then one of them like, well, don't you remember me saying this? To try to prove their point and whatnot. And he's like, well, I just don't really think that is the big problem here, if, it was something trivial.
So your brother heard the argument and they were asking, don't you remember?
Yeah, one of them was asking him, well, don't you side with me? Don't you remember me saying this?
Were they like clients or something?
Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, I really don't think it's worth arguing about.
Who said what?
Who's right or wrong? Let's just make it up. If that shirt's really blue or off shade of whatever, it was something so
just
insignificant. They just wanted to prove that they were right. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not really going to answer one way or the other because it's so insignificant.
Right. That's so true. So yeah, he definitely mentioned that. So when disagreements occur, you have 2 choices. One, you can argue to win, which means, well, one of you are going to be left unhappy because there's a winner and a loser. Or 2, you discuss the situation to actually solve the problem, which means considering you might be wrong. So I thought this was interesting. And again, we're a work in progress as well. You and I are very competitive people. So going into an argument, I think a lot of times we both want to win this argument and we want to be like, okay, well, I'm going to admit I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong. They're wrong. So...
Yes, you are not wrong in saying that. But there's sometimes I'm like, all right, let's get to the point. This is going to cause a fight.
Yeah.
And I'll just give up. I'm like, what? It's not worth it. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're right. And then later on, you'll be like,
trivial, petty things. And now, obviously, there are going to be arguments where maybe they're a little bit deeper. But again, if you're going into the argument thinking there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, that's not going to be good for anybody. Yeah, you're both going to.
Because then later on, you'll be like, oh, well, you didn't really mean it. I'm like, you're right. I didn't mean it at all. Yeah. But that got us past the moment, didn't it? And you're like, yeah, but you still don't feel it. No, I don't.
Yeah.
But it was fine because we got past that, moment that really all we were arguing about who was right rather than once again to solve a problem.
It's so true. So yeah, that resonated a lot because I think a lot of people obviously go into arguments that way. So
and at the end of the day, who cares who's right?
Yeah.
You want to coexist and be happy.
Mm-hmm. And I see this even outside of relationships, on social media, people arguing on comments or posts. And it's you're never going to convince someone else your opinion, especially online. It's just so funny to watch people argue back and forth and like, what are you even doing? Like, do you even know this person? First of all, probably not. And second, like, even if you do, you can't force your opinion on someone and get them to be like, okay, I guess you're like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah.
it's just so trivial.
You're never gonna feel better about this situation.
Exactly. So yeah, that was just interesting. I think we'll cover one more today and we'll leave a couple for the next few episodes. So number 4 is love demands confrontation. Don't sweep things under the rug.
We just tried to avoid confrontation. Now we're
Hold up. That's different than arguments.
okay.
So I think you and I are actually really good at this. So we don't really let things fester too much. I feel like if something bothers us, the other one's going to know right away.
Oh, yeah.
And people have often sometimes said that we bicker. But honestly, our bickering isn't a full-blown argument and we're kind of like picking at each other about maybe something small. But then we get over it pretty fast. Like things aren't like swept under the rug and meant to fester. So that is what he's addressing here. He says, it seems like a noble thing to let issues go, but noble it is not. Not addressing issues only causes them to grow and fester to the point where hearts become hardened and bitter. I feel like I know a lot of couples that are like this, where they're like, well, it's no big deal, but it starts to become a big deal if you can. Yes, and you start to compile, and these little things are now adding up to one giant snowball, and then it really gets to be a big issue. So, not that like nitpicking and all of those little arguments are good, but addressing things in a responsible adult manner is a good way to get things done, and making sure that they don't collect over time and fester into just a giant argument. So yeah, so these are, like I said, just some tips that we'll cover into next week as well. 25 tips for lasting 25 years of marriage. So always good to hear from people who have been married for a long time and getting their perspectives. So stay tuned for future episodes. We'll cover the rest of those 25 tips. So let's spin it into our finance today.
What if somebody had a question or had in regards to, they had a relationship question they wanted to ask? Where would they go for that?
That is a very good question as I come into your screen there. They can ask those questions on our social media accounts. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe to make sure you're not missing any future episodes. You can ask those comments and questions there. But we also have a website. And what is that website?
Financially, the number 4, financiallyforeverafter.com.
Yes.
Leave a comment. Ask a question, and you can actually apply for a 15-minute consultation with myself in regards to finances.
Yeah, and it's a good time to do it because with the economy being what it is, people might have some really deep questions for you. So taking it into questions, we did get a few financial questions written in, and I wanted to ask those questions and have you address those.
All right, let's see what we got.
Let's do it. So we're going to start off with, this was written in by Kate. So thank you, Kate, for asking this question. But her question is, how can I financially prepare for a major life event? So let's spin it in a way where maybe you're purchasing a home, you have a wedding coming up, whatever it may be, fill in the blank. How would you recommend preparing for that?
So there's a foundation. So it's kind of like building a house, right? There's nothing sexy about concrete and rebar in a house, but it's the foundation. Everything else sits on top of it. And if there's a crack in the foundation, then obviously walls can crumble. Everything else cannot work out so well. So the same thing applies for your finances and where you should start. Oh, I have a big purchase. Well, you really need to start to have about 3 to 6 months of your gross annual earned income liquid. So that's a lot of words really quick. What that means is, let's just make it simple. Say you make 100 grand a year. Need about 50 grand, 25 to 50 grand liquid available, accessible for things that come up. So like, hey, I have a big event. I have a wedding. I have a new car purchase. I need to put a down payment on a house. Okay, great. You have some of that money. You have some of that liquidity there that you could use to help do some of those things. Now, granted, if you know, and that's just kind of the basics like that you should always have. But if you know, like, you're getting married, because let's be real, it's not like it's an overnight thing unless you go to like Vegas and get eloped or, something of that nature. But usually it's 6 months to a year and a half type of thing. Like, you can save up. And I would say build up even more cash during that particular time if you have a big type of purchase that you might need a down payment or a bunch of cash for.
Okay, that's good. And she didn't mention what her life event is. So if it is marriage or a baby, congratulations. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Thanks for writing that in. I actually really like this question because I had a similar question regarding this. So thanks, Sarah. This is coming from Sarah for writing this in. Her question is, what is financial literacy and why is it important? I.e., kids economics, budgeting, and how to balance a checkbook. So I guess her question is maybe having those in the schools, like how important is that for them?
I just think back of us going to school, and I don't know about you, but did you have any financial literacy at all in your high school?
Yeah, I think we did like an economics class. I know we did something where we were budgeting, like how to budget, doing like checkbooks and stuff like that. That is something that we did take.
So in my high school, we didn't have any of that.
Oh, that's surprising
So
because
we
you
had
went to a bigger school than I did.
Yeah, we had an economics class, but we didn't have like, hey, we're going to teach you how to do a checkbook. I actually didn't learn that till I was in college, University of Nebraska. I did not know that. And they did balancing, checkbooks and other thing. Now, granted, grew up, I worked. My grandparents, when I was living in college with them, like they were showing me that stuff. My parents showed me some of that stuff. So I kind of learned it from them, but not everybody has that.
Yeah.
I think honestly, throughout the school system, they should teach that. Like 100%. That should be a class that they teach. Like as you hit 14, like you should have to learn that.
Yeah.
That should be a class 14, 15, like, because that's when you're going to start to actually
jobs.
work and to show you like, hey, this is why you should not have a bunch of balance on a credit card. But I think you need to start in the school system. And parents, if you have a teenager at home or even somebody in college that's like in college and hasn't actually gotten a full job yet, I don't say it's on you, but you can take, the bull by the horns and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to teach them. I'm going to teach them the basics of a checkbook. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's been a long time since I've done my checkbook because we don't do it. Everything's online. But hey, if you do have to write a check, which a lot of people don't even write checks anymore, but like everything's almost
withdrawal,
instantaneous within a few days.
That's a good question. So how do you even budget a checkbook now with everything being online? Do you just have to wait for it to come in online and kind of watch your account online?
So let's just say make it simple. We have $50,000 in the checking account and we had to write a $2,000 insurance payment. So I know obviously $2,000 is going to come out. I write a check for it. It's still going to show $50,000 until that check is cashed. But I can't write a $54,000 check knowing that there's only $50,000 in there. So you just got to be smart. You got to look online and know how much it's going through. So you can keep a ledger saying, all right, well, I've written all these checks coming out, but I still do think it's not a bad thing to teach people how to do a normal handwritten checkbook because then they can understand the difference from debits compared to credits and how that all works out.
Okay, that's good information. And then stemming off that with budgeting, like how do you think that's something they need to be teaching in schools as well, is how to budget?
I mean,
for these, because the younger you can do it, the better.
Like there should just be a financial literacy class in college and high school. All of it. Like they should all be taught that.
Because our son's in a finance class right now, but I don't even think they're teaching him. It's more like economic kind of classes where they're teaching him stock market and things like that.
And they do it with, a bunch of mock money and it doesn't mean anything to them because it's mock money. I remember actually in college that there was somebody that donated money and it was actually
real money
that we got.
Was it Warren Buffett?
It was not Warren. It probably would have been a much larger sum of money.
Oracle of Omaha. Help University of Nebraska. Oh, come on, sir. All right. Well, that's good information as far as kids and getting them started young so they're prepared and ready because that stuff's important to know.
The sooner the better that you can just teach them the value. But, getting a job, there's a lot of people that say, hey, well, my kid's going to study up and they're going to get grades that are going to be good enough to where they go to college and it's going to be paid for. Great. That happens sometimes, but odds are that probably 2 to 5% of the actual population. Everybody else has to throughout college actually pay for it. Or if you don't go to college, you have a normal job that you have normal bills that you have to pay for. You need to learn the basics and somebody's got to teach you. You got to learn from somewhere. And if somebody doesn't teach you, those are the people that typically get behind. Those are the ones that have a lot of bills. Those are the ones that charge a whole bunch. We talked about the $1 a day or the $1 million latte that people are constantly getting coffee or constantly getting other things. Like it's the people that go to the grocery store or the gas station and constantly have to buy some, obviously you got to get groceries, but gas station and, oh, I'm needing to buy something all the time, but you're just making enough to get by. That's a problem.
Right.
If you have enough, then that's not as big of an issue, but you need to be good about setting a budget. And guess what? Spend less than what you make. That's a pretty easy budget.
Yeah.
And then it should help build your checking, your savings, and build that all up so you can get the 3 to 6 months of your annual earned income saved, so then you're not worrying so much.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for those that wrote in with those questions. If you do have other financial or love or relationship questions, make sure you're writing those in so we can address them on future episodes. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Financially Forever After, a Love and Money podcast.